My own daughter pushed my wife into cheating with a rich man, then framed me for abuse so they could steal my house and custody of my son. Overnight, I became the villain in my own family story. Hello, Reddit I+ here. My name is Victor Ramirez, and I'm 46 years old. For the last 2 decades, I've worked as a construction supervisor, building homes and commercial spaces across our city. It was a tough but honest job. Long days in the sun, managing crews, and sometimes sacrificing time with my family so we could live a stable life. I never considered myself rich, but I was proud to be the kind of man who made sure his family never went hungry and always had a roof over their heads. For 23 years, I was married to Marisol, who is now 43. Together, we built what I thought was a loving family. We had 2 children, Elena, now 21, and Diego, who just turned 14. Marisol worked part-time as a receptionist at a small neighborhood clinic. The income wasn't much, but it gave her independence and let her socialize outside the house. We were a modest, middle-class family. No fancy cars, no luxury vacations, just movie nights at home, camping trips, and the occasional dinner out. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. I was wrong. The subtle signs about a year ago, Marisol began changing. At first, I thought it was just midlife restlessness, maybe stress from work or our long years of routine. But then it became impossible to ignore. She guarded her phone like a prison warden. She stayed late after work, claiming extra paperwork. She started buying new dresses, styling her hair differently, and wearing perfumes I'd never seen before. When I asked about it, she rolled her eyes, accused me of being controlling, and called me paranoid. I wanted to believe her. I loved her too much to admit the obvious. Then, the truth came crashing down from an unexpected source. Our daughter, Elena. One evening, Elena came to me, visibly upset. She told me she had seen her mother having dinner with a man she didn't recognize. She described how Marisol laughed in a way she hadn't seen in years, leaning across the table with her hand on his arm. I wanted to deny it, to convince myself it was just a co-worker, but deep down, I knew. My wife wasn't just meeting someone for dinner. She was involved. The man turned out to be Richard Donovan, a wealthy 50-year-old real estate developer who had recently moved into our community. Richard was infamous for his flashy cars, giant house parties, and the way he flaunted his money. He was the type of man who thrived on being admired. It turned out Marisol had been sneaking into his world for months, enjoying his extravagant lifestyle behind my back. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She admitted everything. She said she had fallen in love with Richard and wanted a divorce. 23 years of marriage, our shared memories, sacrifices, and struggles were reduced to ash in a single confession. I told myself I would survive. If she wanted someone richer, someone more glamorous, then fine, let her go. But what I didn't expect was Elena, my daughter, the same one who had exposed her mother's affair, switching sides. At first, Elena had been angry at her mother, furious at the betrayal, but Richard's wealth was persuasive. Suddenly, she began blaming me for everything. She accused me of being a failure, of giving her and her brother a mediocre life. She said she wanted a father who could provide luxury, not just stability. Those words crushed me in a way Marisol's betrayal never could. Your wife can break your heart, but when your own child looks at you with contempt, it's like your soul is being torn apart. What followed was a nightmare I wouldn't wish on anyone. With Richard's money backing her, Marisol unleashed a legal assault. She painted me as emotionally abusive, controlling, and negligent. She described a version of me that I didn't even recognize, a monster who supposedly ruled the house with fear. And then came Elena's testimony. My own daughter took the stand and claimed I had anger issues, that I yelled constantly and even threatened her. Every word was a lie, but she delivered it with confidence and eloquence. The judge believed her. I was torn to shreds. The court awarded Marisol nearly everything: the house, the majority of our savings, and worst of all, full custody of Diego. Diego begged the judge to stay with me, but he was a minor, and his voice carried little weight. I was granted limited visitation, barely enough to see my own son grow. I even requested paternity tests in a desperate attempt to prove a long-term affair, but both children were biologically mine. It didn't matter. In the eyes of the law, I was the villain. To add insult to injury, Elena filed for a restraining order against me, claiming she feared for her safety. That sealed the coffin. I moved into a small apartment and threw myself into work. Oddly, my finances improved because I no longer had to sustain a family home. I saved aggressively and took on extra projects. Outwardly, I was rebuilding. Inwardly, I was broken. The only lifeline was Diego. Despite the custody arrangement, he would secretly call me, whispering his frustrations about living with Richard. He said Richard controlled every aspect of their lives, what they ate, who they talked to, even their social media. He described him as cold, calculating, and explosive when things didn't go his way. Ironically, Richard was embodying the exact traits Elena had falsely accused me of. Then, 3 months ago, something unexpected happened. I received a string of desperate messages from Elena. She confessed that Richard had turned into a tyrant. He verbally abused her and Marisol daily, monitored their every move, and restricted their spending. He belittled Marisol in front of her, mocked her appearance, and treated her as nothing more than an accessory. Everything Elena had falsely claimed about me was now her reality with Richard, and now she was begging me for help. Here's where I stand. My son is trapped in that house, and I need to protect him. But helping Diego might mean also helping Elena, the same daughter who betrayed me in court, destroyed my reputation, and made me a stranger in my own home. Part of me wants to leave her to face the consequences of her choices, but another part of me whispers, she's still your daughter. I don't know if I'm strong enough to forgive her. I don't know if I should rescue her from the fire she lit herself. What I do know is that Diego doesn't deserve to suffer in that house, and I'll fight for him no matter what it takes. Even if it means stepping back into the nightmare I thought I'd left behind. After I received Elena's desperate messages, I sat in my apartment for hours, staring at the screen. My chest felt tight. The irony was so thick it was suffocating. Everything she had accused me of, Richard was actually doing. Yet here she was, asking for the very man she destroyed to come save her. I didn't reply immediately, partly because of the restraining order, partly because of the storm raging inside me. Should I help her? Did she deserve it? My mind kept circling back to Diego. He was only 14, still just a boy, and he was living in that hell. He didn't have the power to leave on his own. If Richard was already tearing Elena and Marisol apart, what about Diego? That was my answer. My son came first. Always. But if I made the wrong move, if I violated the restraining order or gave the court a reason to twist things, I could lose Diego forever. I needed to be smart. 2 weeks later, Diego came to visit me for the weekend. The moment he stepped inside my apartment, he broke down crying. "Dad," he whispered, his voice trembling, "I can't do this anymore." He told me Richard had started monitoring even his homework, criticizing his grades, and comparing him to Richard's colleagues' children. Diego said he felt like he was walking on glass every day, terrified of doing something that would make Richard explode. That night, he begged me not to take him back on Sunday. "Please, Dad. Please don't make me go back there. I'll run away if I have to." I held him, and for the first time in years, I cried with him. That was the moment I knew I had no choice. I couldn't sit back and hope the system fixed itself. I had to fight. I met with my lawyer, Mr. Hernandez, a tough old bulldog of a man who had seen every dirty trick in the book. When I showed him Elena's messages and relayed Diego's words, he leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and said, "Well, Victor, looks like the empire they built on lies is starting to crack. But if you go in guns blazing, the court will shut you down again. We need evidence. Hard evidence. Evidence." That meant witnesses, documentation, recordings, something that could prove Richard's abuse and disprove the lies that Marisol and Elena had spun. Diego was willing to help. He suggested secretly recording Richard's outbursts, but I was terrified of the risks. If Richard caught him, he'd be punished brutally. Still, Diego insisted. He wanted out as badly as I wanted to save him, so we began quietly gathering pieces. Texts Richard had sent to Marisol, bank records showing he cut off her access to money, even photos of bruises on Marisol's arm that Diego swore Richard had caused during one of his rages. Ironically, Marisol herself had started reaching out indirectly. Through mutual friends, I heard she was miserable, trapped by her own decisions. She couldn't admit it publicly, because leaving Richard meant losing the mansion, the status, the fantasy life she'd chosen over me. One evening, while I was working late, I received a call from an unknown number. To my shock, it was Elena. "Dad," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I'm sorry. I don't even know where to start. I was stupid. I thought Richard's money would give us a better life. I thought Mom deserved more than what we had. But he's a monster." There was silence. I didn't know what to say. My heart was torn between rage and relief. She continued, "I lied in court. I thought I was helping Mom. I thought you'd be fine. But I ruined everything. Please, please help us get out." The old me, the one before betrayal, would have hugged her through the phone. But the scar she left was too deep. "Elena," I said coldly, "you destroyed me. You made the world believe I was a monster. And now you want me to save you? She sobbed. I know, and I'll never forgive myself. But Diego's in danger. Mom's in danger. I don't care what happens to me, just please save them. Her words cut me like a knife. I hated that she was right. Mr. Hernandez filed a motion for emergency custody of Diego, citing new evidence of abuse in Marisol's household. It wasn't easy. The court was reluctant to revisit the case, given the restraining order and my history as they saw it. But the recordings Diego managed to capture tipped the scales. In one, Richard's voice thundered through the speaker. You think you can defy me? This is my house. You'll eat what I say, you'll talk when I allow it, and you'll damn well obey me. Or you can live on the street. Hearing that in court was like vindication and agony all at once. It was proof of what Diego endured, but it also highlighted the injustice of how I'd been painted. Elena, to her credit, came forward voluntarily. She recanted her testimony, admitting she had lied under pressure from her mother and her desire for Richard's approval. The judge looked at her with cold eyes, but her confession shifted the entire atmosphere of the case. For the first time in a year, the tide was turning. The court granted me temporary custody of Diego, while a deeper investigation was launched into Richard's behavior. Marisol, meanwhile, refused to leave Richard outright but begged me to protect Diego. She looked like a shell of the woman I once knew, trapped in golden chains she had willingly clasped on. Elena asked to live with me too, but I couldn't bring myself to give her an immediate yes. My wounds were too raw. I told her she could visit, but that trust would have to be rebuilt, slowly, painfully, brick by brick. As for Richard, he wasn't happy. He showed up outside my workplace once, glaring at me from his luxury car. I knew this wasn't over. Men like him don't just let go of control. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't fighting for Marisol. I wasn't fighting for Elena. I was fighting for Diego and for the truth. And this time, I was ready to burn every bridge and stand in the fire if it meant saving my son.